So, hey guys, today we're going to be talking about probably why we're getting somewhat mediocre ban lists like all the time in Master Duel. So, I mean, first thing people blame are kind of, well, it's kind of money, right? So, money, I guess, could be uh partially the reason. Well, I don't think it's really the big one. So, for example, let's say with Malice, for some reason, I couldn't tell you why, they put Gold Sark at 2 before releasing Malice. Like, really? Then what hits did they do to Malice itself? I don't think there were any hits, right? It was either completely full power or they did something like semi-limit Dormouse. If I recall correctly, yeah, it was completely full power and they didn't do anything. And the semi-limit was like the first thing they did. They semi-limit Dormouse. That was the first like hit to Malice, I think. That was probably it. But if you look at like what they actually banned here, a lot of people say they don't like to ban URs, but here you can see they banned 3 URs almost, and they're all limited. So here you get 60 back on here, 120, 180, 180 UR dust to make a new deck with, assuming you pulled for Malice, right? And even if you don't pull for Malice, if you just have some Malice cards, you do get some dust, so that's nice, I guess. But instead, look, we could have hit like this. I don't know how effective the hits would be necessarily, but instead, we still ban Red Ransom. We just ban instead either TP07 or GWC06. And then we can ban, well, Malice of the Mirror for fun. And then ban one name, so ban Chessie Cat because that's the only non-UR name here. And boom. We reduce the amount of UR dust our players get, and we still do, I don't know, like a moderate job of just hitting Malice, right? And that option is totally possible, right? I mean, effectiveness may be a little questionable, but I think the methodology would still be kind of sound, and that'd be like maybe the most money hungry thing you could do. I don't know, but yeah, there's some things that they tend not to do, like when a banner is up, they won't significantly hit a deck that's in one of the banners. So in the selection packs, I mean, like, yeah, whatever the case, it doesn't tend to happen. So if we were to hit Malice, I guess it would affect the, well, people wanting to pull on the selection or not, and it actually wouldn't have affected it as much previously because when you declared a ban list, technically you could have still pulled these cards later after the ban list was declared and then still dust them for like UR dust. So let's say they declare while the banner is up, Dormouse is you know, getting, let's say, banned. So you might want to also pull on the selection now just to get 3 copies of Dormouse, so you can dust them later and get some returns there. Or you craft 3 Dormouse if you had 0 copies, so you can dust them, and if you get any like foil copies or royal copies of Dormouse, you can get like some extra dust that way. Which I think they probably disliked both these things, considering the way they like changed how that ban list thing works. But at the same time, I mean, like, they just released ban lists so late regarding newly released archetypes now. I'm feeling like that change was completely unnecessary because, well, when did they actually first hit Malice? I think it was almost like a month or 2 after the selection was gone for Malice. Actually dreadful. And I think the only hit they might have done was like semi-limit Dormouse. I think like Ryzeal actually got more hits than Malice, which is pretty wild, but all right, I guess. Sure. Cool. So, yeah, pretty strange, pretty awkward, but all right, I guess. So then there's also an issue where a lot of people are going like, oh, why don't you hit this? Why do they hit that? And there's also the issue of Macedol being one of the best ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And there are a lot of like more niche strategies and decks where they're also still played, but it's hard to tell like without the data, like exact scale. So let's say, for example, we want to hit Habakiri, right? So a bunch of suggested methods to actually hit Habakiri. So if we hit King of the Feral Imps here, so let's see, Feral Imps. You can ban this card. You can also ban like Herald of Arclight, and these two hits would affect Mitsurugi, is what was suggested. But you also have to consider that, well, what modes do you actually have to play in Master Duel? So you have rank mode, and then, even if you do want to play like ban cards and solo modes, you can't. So there are no modes, actually. Once a card gets banned, that you can really play them in. So not even in events, despite maybe the card being completely fine. So let's say they actually completely hit Mitsurugi, right? And Mitsurugi's banned from an event, which the last event, like as of this recording, it was a dice rally. So Mitsurugi, I believe they banned like every single Mitsu card, like all the main deck monsters and the ritual monsters, every single one banned. But you know what wasn't like lifted off of the ban list, despite it technically being well, despite synchros being legal? Herald of Darklight. And let's say I think Yummy was hit a relatively good amount too. And even if Yummy were straight up banned, you would only still have this one copy of Herald of Arclight because all of the ban lists are somewhat shared in Master Duel. So we don't really end up getting cards back. We only really end up losing cards for the most part. There were very few instances, I think, where you get cards back during an event, and a lot more where you end up losing cards, making a lot of strategies just remain unplayable the moment they get put on, well, affected by the ban list. So in this case, let's say like Herald of Arclight is actually insanely good ritual support and kind of the only ritual support for a long time. So you have multiple ways to access Herald of Darklight. So uh let's go through a few ways. So Diviner, obvious, right? Diviner sends Herald. And then this will be able to do a lot, just in general, right? So for Voiceless Voice, what would you actually end up sending with Diviner? You can send Herald of Darklight, so it doesn't matter as much for specifically Voiceless, because there was Prius Hierarchia that you could send, and then you tribute the Diviner, the special summon low, right? You could do that here. And then with Novel, you also can do kind of a similar play, right? And then these guys, let's see, it's only this one. You have Poissonnaire de Novel here, which has an effect to add some stuff on summon. But let's think about this. If we normal summon Diviner and we grab Herald of the Arclight, I think this play is going to be better for Novel when you're able to do so, because you can then still get the affected tribute. So you're actually searching two different cards with just Diviner here, right? Because we can grab like a ritual or a ritual monster, like whatever piece we're missing here. So that's like a 2-card combo angle. And then whenever we tribute the Diviner, that grabs Poissonnaire de Novel, which allows you to search another card. So in this case, if we special Brilla base the Novell here, um, I think is this the correct one? No, it's not. Is it? Was it this one? I'm pretty sure one of these actually grabs a thing, right? Or was it the ritual spell? Let's see. Not this. Is it this one? I'm pretty sure it was one of these, right? Ah, this one. Add one recipe ritual spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So this effect, so we can more consistently access this ritual, which seems to be the best one as far as I can tell. So you want to grab Reset de Poison, right? And then you want to um ritual summon out like one of these guys. I guess it doesn't matter too much which one, but I guess the ideal is this one, and then you might hit one of these two. Wait, this isn't a Novels card technically. Well, I guess you could get Novel's Restaurant, right? And then search a recipe, and this searches another ritual monster, and then you might be able to extend a little further from there. Yeah, this isn't possible without Herald of Arclight, so there's kind of that idea. And with Diviner, I mean, like Voiceless Voice, it doesn't matter as much because Trias Hierarchy fulfills the role like very satisfactory here, but if we go to like maybe something like Vendread, not having this, like, there's no reason to send Trias Hierarchy and no fairies to summon off of Diviner, but it's still a ritual deck, right? So Diviner is not even a one card combo. In a lot of these cases, I think you need a second card. So something like Crap, or you hard open Revendred Slayer, and then you can use Diviner to search, I believe it's Evolution, and then you can combo off from there, because this is a legit ritual spell that you can search by sending Herald of Darklight. And then you also have this kind of neat play where after we special summon Revendred Slayer, we can send Revendred Slayer with Diviner and make Tzolk'in, and you'll always be able to grab a ritual spell off of like the Slayer. So you can like set a ritual spell and then activate it later. But that will trigger Tzolk'in, allowing you to play around Nibiru, which I think is kind of neat. But also, just throwing it out there, while in the Vendred combo, you can use like Sprite Elf, and you also make like Baron, because you end up having the levels for Baron with this, sometimes it's just the thing that can come up. And also Warlord Savage, which are all generic. So technically, if you actually hit these cards, this ends up being also like a Vendred hit. Like, yeah, it's just kind of getting hit in the crossfire, and I don't think Vendred is even necessarily that strong, even with this stuff. Yeah, if you hit any of these cards, it's a Vendred hit now, also, and you just take past strays from kind of Habakiri here, and a bunch of decks just get hit by strays like this if you hit something like really generic that a lot of decks use. So at this point, like, I'm pretty sure all of the people that play, for example, like Novelle's Dogmatic Ritual, and Dogmatic Ritual really loves sending Herald. So you have the idea, like, you have two different ones where you send with two different cards. You have Maximus, and you have Nadir Servant, both of which have the effect to send Herald of Darklight to allow you to do some searches. This is negatively impacted by Herald of Arclight being hit. Just straight up, right? So I don't know exactly how many ritualists would get, well, negatively impacted by Herald of Arclight being hit. I think Drytron, surprisingly enough, that might be one of the decks that's not hit by this, like, too hard, from what I remember. But aside from that, a lot of these decks are actually just catching strays, and that's because of, just Habakiri here. If you were to use Herald of Arclight to search Habakiri and you hit Herald for that sucks. Yummy actually just happens to make this as an inboard piece, and that's really all they do with Herald of Arclight. Well, now, if you hit it because of that, like, no matter when you hit it or why you hit it, it's still hitting the other decks here. And you're just caught in the crossfire here, really. It's not great. And in terms of, let's say, King of Fairlamps, this is actually some of the best, like, reptile support. And I don't know how many, like, Ogdo players there are, but, like, I'm not even 100% sure how you do make King of Fairlamps or, like, Alien or whatever deck you're playing, honestly. But yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of reptile decks do enjoy and like using King of the Fairlamps to just normally play, right? So now all of your strategies just become pretty unplayable if they relied on King of the Fairlamps. So with King of the Fairlamps in particular, I'm lacking a bit of knowledge, and I do know more about like the Diviner and Herald of the Arclight lines involving some ritual decks. But yeah, with King of the Fairlamps, I'm actually just genuinely a little bit unsure with how much impact this has. But since they didn't hit it, I'm going to assume it's vital to something in some reptile related strategy, like surely. Like, there must be something, right? Otherwise, they would have hit King of the Fairlamps by now. But this also affects like the future of reptile decks as well. If we hit King of the Fairlamps as well, because we do have like Flame Banshee, which is able to search like any pyro, and it's kind of the same as like King of the Fairlamps. But I guess this isn't being hit because Habakiri just isn't a pyro monster. If Habakiri were a pyro monster, this would be like on the chopping block or consideration to be put on the chopping block. But also at the same time, honestly, this card, since it's been released, has been used for nothing but degenerate things. So it's like, okay, whatever. Bye bye, Flame Banshee. Who really cares? With this card in particular, that this is just used to like search for like Eschatos, Protos, set up technically Colossus, and then start Snake Eye combo from like whatever bridge. At the moment, I think that's all you can really do with Flame Banshee, right? So not a super big fan of Flame Banshee. Actually, wait, it can also bridge into Raziel. Great. Lovely. Who wouldn't want that? Well, okay. So, yeah, I mean, kind of just degenerate all around, right? And there were other examples of this, like with Tearlament, where, I mean, now it's like pretty unavoidable, right? And what they chose to hit in like BCG, OCG, I only vaguely know. Like, Curious. This is banned, I believe. In I don't know if it's still banned, but it should be banned in like TCG or OCG. And this was because of Tearlament. But if you were just playing actually just Lightsworn, that's a hit to your deck. And I believe we did get Lightsworn support. I'm just not 100% certain when you got that Lightsworn support. But yeah, if this gets hit because of Tearlament, it's still just the Lightsworn hit. And I'm not really sure what other decks might make Curious, so not really sure if there's 100% justification for keeping Curious or not. But it is still a fact that this is a Lightsworn hit if you do ban Curious. And then if we do ban Sprite Elf, this is always going to be a Sprite hit. And it's also going to hit like a bunch of random strategies as well that just make Sprite Elf for whatever reason. So let's see. I think this is something you can make in Memento. I don't remember like 100% the context for this, but that would negatively affect Memento somewhat. Not even that much. I think that this is really in a lot of Memento decks because you don't really have like any extra deck cards to put in to your deck that have like any purpose in being there or anything like that. So yeah, kind of a little bit more awkward with Sprite Elf and Memento, but I believe this affects like uh Tri Brigade Sprite as well, and who knows what other strategies. I'm not 100% certain on what this is being played in, but this can be played in a lot of different things for like a small reason or a niche reason where you're just using the Reborn and not much else. But yeah, I mean, if you're hitting a non-archetypal card, the justification I think needs to be very good because this is catching a lot of decks in the crossfire. So keep in mind that with Master Duel, this is the best and most convenient way you have to kind of like play Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And because of that, this is also somewhat best place to play like a lot of different strategies. And that's partially why they do the ban list the way they do it. So with Tier Limit, they never actually completely killed Tier Limit, whereas with like in TCG, OCG, they were trying insanely hard to kill Tier Limit in comparison, right? Because in like TCG, OCG, they genuinely did not want you playing Tier Limit, whereas with I guess Master Duel, they did want you playing Tier Limit, they just want Tier Limit to be weaker, which is a lot of why we get our banless hits like this. Like, if you want to play Tier Limit, like I personally don't like playing against Tier Limit or like the deck at all, but if you do, I think it's kind of a good thing that you can play Tier Limit if you wanted to play Tier Limit in Master Duel, right? And you've just always been able to somewhat play Tier Limit. And that applies to like just every single deck really, where if you want to play this deck or that deck, you can play that deck, right? But if you hit like certain generics, that these cards are kind of like crutches for a lot of different archetypes because they just haven't really gotten good support. Yeah, I suppose maybe. Who knows? But whatever reason it is, it can kind of vary. Like if we ban um Linkuriboh or Linkuriboh, that actually negatively affects Altergeist, and the only line they can do if you ban Promethean Princess, yeah, that also negatively affects Altergeist's really bad one card combo. Like this deck might as well be on life support, but if you randomly hit those cards like that could just catch strays, and it's already like fairly unplayable despite like all of its cards being legal. Like as crazy as that sounds, it's just true, right? So yeah, you're catching strays from other decks getting hit here. Yeah, or other cards, which the intent would be to maybe like weaken Mitsurugi, but this just it's every single ritual deck that uses Herald of Darklight at the moment. Which I don't remember if Drytron sends this. What does Drytron even send off of Diviner? I think sometimes you just send Benton, but I think you might send Herald of Arclight in some cases, no? But you can just send Benton directly instead of just searching it, so then you can ritual summon Benton, but if you add Benton, I think it's still a little bit better. But Drytron cards can also add Benton. And I genuinely don't remember what you sent with this. Was it just Eva? Maybe. So maybe like Drytron specifically wouldn't get hit, but like, who knows? There's just insane consequences for banning like a card. Like it could be like, well, some of them were justifiable, like I guess like Moon, but some people really like Fiendsmith, so it's like mixed bag. Like with Moon at the close heaven, this allows you easy Fiendsmith access. but if you don't have it, it might be a little bit more difficult to access Fiendsmith. And some strategies, maybe some people like playing Fiendsmith with for whatever reason. So, like, let's say, I don't know, Bell gets affected because people are playing it with Fiendsmith. So, it really is a mixed bag. If you hit something or you don't hit something, there's like consequences for like a bunch of different decks. So, it is really difficult to hit any card sometimes, which is why sometimes I guess they just don't hit any cards at all. But I mean, the simplest thing they can do is just at least consistency hits. So, well, that's usually what ends up happening is just consistency hits to make it so you're um, incentivized not to play a deck. That's about all they could have done. But the issue now with specifically Habakiri is that, well, this card just has way too many ways to actually search it. And like, even if you did hit, for example, Herald of the Arclight or King of the Pharaohs, you still have ways to search Habakiri. Even if this card were limited and you hit those cards, you still have ways to search and access this card. It's so dumb. Like, the only thing you could do is really ban Habakiri, but now that this affects Mitsurugi players because, well, once again, they do want you to actually still be able to play Mitsurugi. So if they straight up like hit Mitsurugi too hard, then you can't play Mitsurugi, right? And if we actually go ahead and real quick check every single like ban card at the moment. Oh, whoops. Ban cards only. How many archetypal ban cards are there actually? Like, generally, it has to have a very good reason to be banned. So, in terms of archetypal cards, so we have right now Red Ransom, which is hit because, well, Malice, right? Oh, can't put them in my deck still. Annoying. But we have Red Ransom that is hit. We have Beatrice, which is technically a Burning Abyss card, but this is just banned for the same kind of reason that Lavalval Chain is kind of banned right now, I suppose. So justifiable here. This is pretty justifiable. I mean, this is less justifiable than like Beatrice, and then this card's just like fairly strong at the moment and makes the game kind of uninteractive with Ryzo Cross. So that's banned. But in terms of archetypal monsters, we have Beatrice, Red Ransom, and then this is like an FTK enabler, I'm pretty sure. Soulbreaker Armor. So that's banned. Rongo Miniad. I don't think this is part of an archetype, right? Yeah. Crystron Heliky Fibrax because it's so generic. We have Artifact Scythe and Artifact Mjolnir. These are just like kind of floodgates. Merly is a tier hit because tier is like kind of the strongest deck. Yeah, even now, if you unhit this, that'd be a little bit problematic. Same with kind of like Brillarina, right? And then after this point, I don't think there are any archetypal hits onwards, right? Union Carrier, you could argue a little bit. Totally awesome. I genuinely don't know why this card is still hit, but I mean, I guess it is. True King of all calamities. This is like a terrible floodgate. So if it's a floodgate or if foolish burial stuff, like this is just send any card from your deck to the graveyard. So any spell, trap, monster, broken. Totally awesome. Is it a fear of totally awesome plus Sprite Elf that's got this locked down and kind of banned? Not really sure. This guy is also a floodgate. This one, I'm not really sure what this card does, right? This just searches any Beast Warrior monster that can be normal summoned, right? Is that it? I guess it might be because it's a soft once per turn and a hard once per turn. Not really 100% sure on this one, actually. Wait a second. Any two level 4 monsters can make this, right? So I can make Broad Bull, and then I can... Oh, but you can loop this hella. because there's actually also a monster reborn type effect on Zodiac. And then technically, you can just make this normally because its materials only require 2 level 4 monsters. So yeah, maybe a little bit problematic on this one, but okay, whatever. Point is, a lot of archetypal cards are not straight up banned. They're only limited because, yeah, they're genuinely not that problematic. I'd say a lot of the time, where you can get away with just limiting a card or limiting some cards to weaken an archetype, and you don't really need to straight up ban cards most of the time, and it's kind of fine. But then in some odd cases, you do end up with like super powerful cards that are kind of anomalies that you do have to ban. But then there are like some cards that some other cards are dependent on, and then it's just a mess. Habakiri is like one of the cards that's just towing the line where it's like so disgusting as a starter. I think it should just straight up be banned. Like, how am I supposed to play around this, right? I mean, if they limited it, it's still kind of disgusting. So a little bit different from like Dormouse, right? So Dormouse is also kind of a good starter, right? But if I were to like sign it mining or do a bunch of different ways to access the Dormouse, it's still not as efficient as how you can access Habakiri. So for example, let's just say we have 3 copies of Dormouse and then 3 copies of Sign It Mining. If you have 3 copies of Habakiri, and then you have 3 copies of Pre-Prep, this is going to be leagues better than Dormouse plus Sign It Mining, because you have to send a card from your hand to the graveyard to be able to add Dormouse. And this also has the negative aspect of course, like not working under Shifter, but even if you don't consider that, this is a neg1 to search 1 card. This is like +2 in card advantage for searching like Habakiri with pre-prep. And then, you know, that there are different ways you can actually technically search Diviner as well to then send Herald of Arclight to then Habakiri. But if you hit like Diviner or like Herald of Arclight, that'll negatively affect a bunch of different decks. So you catch some strays on that. Like, yeah, great. If you also hit, for example, Signet Mining, so same kind of example here, this just hits a bunch of different cyber stacks that might play mining for whatever reason. So let's say Rincess, for example, if they play Signet Mining, then they'd get hit by that. Code Talkers would get hit by this. Summon Great would get hit by this. Like a bunch of different cyber stacks just randomly getting hit because you hit Signet Mining. And none of those answers were map back. Actually, at Ignister would get hit too, right? Yeah. So you're just catching strays, just all across the board. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.